we're now joined by Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Clive Incorporated to unpack this story for us and explain just how currency devaluation affects stakeholders in the economy. Clive, thank you very much for coming through to join us. Now, Nigeria's decision to devalue its currency has really shaken the market, hasn't it?
It has indeed, but it's nothing to be scared of. I mean, when countries do that, it means that they need to help. They need some help with inflation, and that's the reason why they're doing it. In actual fact, President Goodluck Jonathan wants to make sure that when they go into election, that people are not under pressure when it comes to prices. It can be, you know, depending on how you look at it, it can be detrimental to the actual people he's trying to protect. Because if the response is not positive from other stakeholders, like you mentioned, within the economy, then you might find that the actual people who are getting hurt the most are the poorest of the poor. So you don't want that situation. How
does it affect the rest of the continent, if at all?
One thing you must be aware of is that the Naira is not necessarily a popular currency within the continent. Right. Neither is a kwacha from Kenya. These currencies are very small in terms of value, and when they trade mostly in dollars in any case. So what happens is when you weaken a currency against the dollar, which has already gained such a lot of momentum, what you're saying is that you are prepared to have less of your own money against the dollar to try and attract more dollars, you know, to go into the country. And all they've done is they've extended the band. You know, the band is that the Naira must stay at 168 Naira to the US dollar, either less 3% or over 3%. Right. But now what they've done is extended that gap. That we can call standard deviation, if you like, to 5% either or. So what that means is that when the depreciation takes place, when the trade takes place, it means that obviously because they trade in dollars, they'll have a weaker currency against the dollar. How does that affect the rest of the continent? Not really much, because the problem that you've got now is they're using dollars in any case with the African countries in any case. The problem comes in because the oil in which they export makes up 95% of outside monies that come into, or foreign direct investment, as we would call it. So that means that money now will be less valued because the Naira now is much weaker. Why you do that? It's because you want to stimulate the local market so that there's more dollars available so that you can actually create a platform and make the economy much stronger.
Now, you know, companies like MTN and Bharti Airtel have already been affected by the falling share prices. Why would they hit so hard?
Because news makes noise. You know, every time something happens, people start panicking, people start taking money out. The actual Nigerian security exchange has not been affected at all. In actual fact, it's gained a bit of momentum. What's happened, though, is that certain external countries, certain external investors have looked at that particular devaluation, and they've taken it seriously that it might have a long-term impact on the trade balance for Nigeria. So they're starting to pull out a little bit. They're a bit worried. So somebody like MTN, for example, that is a foreign direct investor, isn't it? Because they come from South Africa. So they would look at that and they start thinking how to evaluate the actual market, how to respond to it. But I think it's very short-lived. It will be short-lived, and we'll forget about the devaluation. All that's happened is that the big impact, the shock, has just happened, and after that you will see things will get back to normal.
Now, of course, Nigeria is not the only country to devalue its currency on the continent. Who else has done it, and what has really been the result, or if there was a benefit?
I just spoke about the kwacha, which is the Kenyan currency, which is quite interesting that, in actual fact, what that did was strengthen the Kenyan investors' confidence over the last 5.5 years. You've seen Kenya actually grow very, very fast. GDP number 6.4%, which is the highest at the moment in the continent year on year. So, you know, you can argue about policy and monetary policy and how you control it, but it's the result that comes there afterwards. And the intention is that when those policymakers sit down, what do they see as an underlying problem for them to actually get some growth going? Now, Kenya is starting from a low base. Like I always say, when a country starts from a low base, it's easy for it to grow. It's the same with Nigeria. Coming from a low base, they're only now starting to use ATMs. I'm not saying it in a bad way, but I'm saying, you know, these things are new to them. And so the infrastructure demand is massive, and infrastructure development is increasingly important in those particular parts of the country. So what's happening is money is coming in. They're starting from a low base. They still have chance to actually do things the way they like until they're comfortable with what they've got. Whereas you've got America, you've got the Eurozone, who have been doing this for years and years and years, and they've reached saturation. So there's very little that they can do to change, to come move. It's like the Titanic. For it to turn, it's going to be very difficult. So these smaller countries, these smaller economies can control that particular change or that shift much easier.
All right, Clive, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you very much for coming through to speak to us. That's Clive Ramathibela-Smith of Clive Incorporated.